let's go into adding volume period for people, because a lot of people, whether it's they don't have commute time or if it's just because they have more time, hopefully it's not because of like, layoffs, stuff like that, but we have a lot of time. Chad, how should we go about adding to what we already do right now?
So first and foremost, probably don't add intensity, because even if you're on a low volume plan, you're getting 2, maybe even 3 days of intensity already. That third day, that weekend ride may not look like an intense ride, but there's intensity there. So if you're going to add intensity, that's going to come in the form of more intervals during the already intense workout. But that's kind of another point we can address later. Easy options are to make your warm up a little longer if you have the time, and I'm assuming you do, and then to extend your cool down. Sorry.
Cool downs. Yep.
Yeah. So basically bookends of the workout, a little extra on the beginning, a little extra at the end, or, keep the warm up the same and just add additional on the end. The +5 and the +6 versions, it's not consistent across workouts, but those are typically the workouts where I've done exactly that. The structure of the interval workout doesn't change at all. We just tack on an extra 20, 30, 40 minutes of aerobic endurance. That's a great way to do it. You don't have to do those though. You can still do your regular workout and then just tack on something like you're talking about with maybe not those, even those, the Lazy Mountain and Dans and Tacos, but maybe something like Pettit, or in any case, just do some extra mileage in tandem with your workout. You can also break it into 2 parts, which is super popular amongst high-level riders and really anybody who has the time to accommodate it. There are so many benefits to 2-a-day workouts, whether they're fasted or not, intended or not. And I say intended or not because you wake up in the morning and hop on the bike. It's probably going to be a fasted workout. Might not be intended to be fasted, but well, it's going to be. If you do it later in the day, you might actually structure it as a fasted workout. Maybe you did your high intensity work early, knowing that later in the day, I'm going to do a lower intensity workout as a fasted workout. Maybe you postpone your carbohydrate intake after that high intensity workout. I mean, these are kind of technical grounds. You have to understand what you're doing and what you're chasing when you starve yourself of carbohydrate relative to intensity rides. I mean, typically it's best to fuel those harder rides. And if you're going to fast any rides, do it with your lower intensity work. It does offer some flexibility that I want to talk about in a second about flip-flopping those. But when you do the high intensity first with the low intensity to follow, we're after a couple of things. One of them is that there's going to be some level of muscle glycogen depletion on that second ride. And this in and of itself fosters its own adaptations, not the least of which is that it increases your capacity for glycogen storage. I mean, what happens when you run your glycogen storage down and then you force another workout on your body with already low glycogen stores is the response is to increase glycogen capacity so the next time you have sufficient sugar stores. And then additionally, because you're operating in a state of less glycogen availability, you're going to increase your percentage of fat metabolism. So the sugar's not there, at least not in the same quantities it normally is. So the body's signal now, or the training signal now, is we're going to have to metabolize different sources of fuel. So this can improve your fat metabolism capability. So it's kind of it addresses both sides of it wonderfully. And then the second thing that happens is there's going to be some level of fiber fatigue. And, we can just as easily interpret that as fiber damage. And what this can do is lead to alternate recruitment patterns, which means more muscle fibers, ones that were dormant, maybe ones that don't get utilized because you don't run them to the same level or the necessary level of fatigue. But in any case, more muscle fibers come on board to contribute to the workload. And I remember reading a Matt Fitzgerald book way back, his Brain Training for Runners, where he used the analogy of a flash flood, in that you're driving to work and the flash flood closes down your usual route. So you take an alternate route and you discover one that's actually faster. So what does that mean? You saved a little bit of gas. You actually found a more efficient route. The same idea here. There's a possibility that you will discover more efficient recruitment patterns by utilizing fibers that don't normally or wouldn't otherwise get utilized.
Yeah, so the 2-a-day approach is something that's, I know a lot of us are doing that now. Like, since I don't have my commute and most mornings, I now have the time to be able to do something like that, which is a handy way to do it. And to be able to plug that in for a lot of people listening to this that don't have a commute anymore. And once again, it's not me doing like crazy intensity, like you're saying, right, Chad?
No, and you don't have to. It's a great way to add volume. And whether you intend it to be fasted or not, there's going to be some level of depletion, some level of fiber fatigue.
On the other side of things, also, like, I feel like a lot of us see, like, we're so cyclists. It's hilarious. Like, we're like, I have more time now. how much of instantly we think that has to be cycling time, right? Like, but there's tons of other things that we can do that can even make us a faster cyclist, right, Amber? That like don't include just adding on more time spinning pedals necessarily.
Yeah, I think most of the time people are trying to fit training into a really tight schedule, and so you're time limited. And when you're time limited, you really want to focus on strength and conditioning essentially. So you want to be doing that really specific training on the bike. If you're a triathlete, you're doing runs, you're doing swims. But when you get that extra time, you can do some of the peripheral types of training that are going to make you faster, that will make you a more well-rounded athlete, help your performance. And those are things like meditation can be huge. I mean, it can be a really integral component of increasing the quality of your recovery, which could be something that with more time, that could actually help you in terms of getting some of those adaptations that you're chasing when you're actually on the bike. Mobility work, another great one to spend a little bit of time on, because oftentimes we don't have time for that. So if you have some extra time, that can be a great way to spend it. And then just doing some maintenance and strength work. I'm a really big fan of going back to the fundamentals. Even as a professional in the off seasons, I would do just really basic skill work. So I would ride rollers, practice riding no-handed, practice riding right up on the edge of the rollers. I'd go out and do bumping drills with my husband in the park by our apartment. I mean, going out and practicing bunny hops. I mean, really, really basic stuff that even as a professional, like, yes, I know how to do that. Yes, I can ride no-handed to get bottles from the car, but it doesn't hurt to practice and strengthen those kind of neuromuscular connections. Just everybody can use practice. Practice makes everybody better, even if it's something that you already know how to do. So I would encourage you to also think outside the box in terms of training, like expand your definition of what it means to be training. It doesn't have to be just pedaling. There's a lot of other things you can do that will contribute to making you a faster athlete. Before I jump off real quick, I want to comment on the fasted thing. Just as a side note, riding fasted and doing fasted training has really different effects for women than it does for men. And that has to do with a lot of the hormonal feedback. So I just want to throw that caveat in there that fasted training tends to work better for men. At least that's what the research suggests right now. And unfortunately, there is limited research on gender differences in fasting. But I just want to throw that out there for consideration. If you're a woman and you're considering fasting, really tune into how it's affecting you, because it might not have the same effects for you as it would for a man.
Yeah, the same goes with intermittent fasting. So if you're looking at it just from a dietary perspective, intermittent fasting has proven to be a greater challenge, far less productive for females than males.
Yeah. Something interesting that you brought up there, Amber, when talking about meditation and mobility work, for sure falls within line on this too. Some of it is painful and not relaxing. Some of it is, though. Like you mentioned, Nate, like foam rolling, right? And we can probably fit that in with the time that we have. But one good point to this is a lot of these things can be like parasympathetic activities.
Yes.
And if you look at right now, training, sympathetic. And then our lives, for most of us right now, are more chaotic than normal. We have more worry. We have more concern. We're probably, sitting pretty high up in terms of chemically speaking, we're probably out of balance, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the more you can bring in those parasympathetic activities, I think that you'll probably find yourself getting more balanced and into a spot where you can better manage not only the training that you're doing, but everything else in your life too.
That's a really good point, especially when people are transitioning to work from home now. I mean, our brains are really good at pattern recognition, right? So when you're at the office, there's a Pavlovian association there, right? Like, I'm in the office, it is time to be focused, do high level mental work. And so your sympathetic system is sort of your fight or flight system, and then your parasympathetic is your rest and digest. And we go back and forth between those at any given point during the day. So when you're really, really tuned in and focused, whether you're on the bike and training, that's like a physical input, but you can also be sort of in that sympathetic system through mental load as well, cognitive load, mental focus. And then when you come home from the office, walking into your front door, that can be an association that your body is like, oh, now is time to rest and digest. Now I can kind of let my hair down, so to speak. We don't have those kind of place-specific associations anymore, right? So a lot of the work that we're doing is bleeding into family life, is bleeding into home life, and it's all kind of getting mixed up into the same thing. So it's harder for us to sort of delineate, like, okay, this is work time, this is rest time. And as a result of that, probably what's happening is a lot of us are missing that parasympathetic recovery. So that's a really, really good point, John. And there's a lot of things you can do. One of the things I used to do when I was training is after I get off the bike, so first thing I do, I have my recovery shake, and then I would lay down, or later in my career, I actually had an inversion table, but I would lay down for 5 minutes, and I'd play the same song, as a piece of classical music that I just found particularly enjoyable and soothing. And I would just do some really deep breathing and listen to that song, so that I created an association that would bring me down from sympathetic to parasympathetic within about 5 minutes. And it was the same song every time, specifically because I wanted to create a Pavlovian response. And it got to a point where I'd get off the bike, I'd have my recovery shake, I'd lay down, and the first few bars of that piece, boom, I would be super relaxed. And it took a while to create that quick Pavlovian response, but you can do similar things even if you're working from home. Carve out little pieces of your day. Maybe it's a piece of music, maybe it's a particular room, maybe it's going outside and sitting on the porch. Whatever it is, find something that you can create an association that's going to bring you down to that parasympathetic level, so that you can get some recovery in your day, because man, we all need it, especially now.
Those associations tie, I think, far more strongly than we recognize to the tone that goes with them. Because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, but I was listening to one the other day, and he mentioned that, think about how hard it is to when you're driving home from work to get yourself to the gym to do a workout. I mean, you're already half checked out, but if you can make yourself get to the gym, everything you associate with being at the gym turns you on. So you will get through that workout. Maybe it's not the greatest quality workout, but you're not going to get to the gym, turn around and go home. Mm-hmm. Once you're there, everything you associate with working out, and in this case, that's going to be sympathetic response, right? Everything gets a little wound up. You're committed to the task and you get it done. But we find ourselves in a position now where we come home and we have this mixed association now. Work's at home, social life's at home, everything that winds us up on a sympathetic level or winds us down on a parasympathetic is in the same location now. So it's really hard to differentiate.
Something interesting along those lines too, Chad, that I think all of us could probably deal with thinking about this is, have you all experienced this where you have a really hard workout and it's scheduled for that day, and it makes you it gives you like race nerves almost, like you're like nervous about it. And when you think about it all day, it makes it so much more likely, I've found, to not do that workout. Whereas if I have it on the calendar, I know it's coming, and then I'm just committed to the schedule and I have that schedule in place, once I show up, I will do that workout, right? But I just need to make sure I'm there. And when I think about it the whole day like that, it's a lot harder to get to the point of actually doing the workout. Kind of like to your point, like once you're at the gym, you're fine, you can do it, it's all set forward. So even though we may not be able to separate ourselves physically from where we need or to do all of these activities, and to be like, okay, on the bike, train time, at home, home time, at the office, work time, even though we may not be able to do that, we do still have some control, and maybe even more control over our schedules to a certain degree. And in that respect, we can still have these separation points. So at the very least, really, because the separation is key. If we can't change the location, at least we can make sure that we are blocking our time like that. And that can really help.
If they're not in place, we have to invent them. We have to give ourselves those differentiating points to say the workday ends here, the social life ends here, and when it starts up again.
Right. So to tie this back to the question of, hey, I have all this extra time, how do I add more volume? Let's think about the fact that, your sympathetic parasympathetic balance is probably pretty out of whack right now. And so maybe one of the best things you can do with that extra time is to dip into that parasympathetic. Give it a shot, see how you feel. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, right? Everybody's situation is a little bit different. Some people are going to get a lot out of getting that extra volume. I have no problem with that. Like I said the other day, I did my intervals and I jumped into Pettit with the rest of the group, and it was a great way to get some extra volume. I loved it. But keep in mind, we still need to maintain that balance, and that balance is part of what's going to make you faster.
If you like this video, you should subscribe to our channel. Maybe even give this video a like with a thumbs up and a comment down below.
If you want to see race analysis videos, you can click on it right over here. And if you want to get your coaching questions answered, you can click on it right over here.
And if you want to become a faster cyclist, which you should go over to TrainerRoad.com. It'll make you faster. We promise. We guarantee it, right, Nate?
Guaranteed. Or your money back.